Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be with you here in beautiful Cannes. Maybe you could begin with a brief introduction to your film, Mongrel. For people who don't know anything about it, what can they expect?
Well, Mongrel, it's very much a film that is personal in terms of the topics it addresses with caregiving, but also a accumulation of the observations that I have had over the last 15 years living in Taiwan. When it's largely a extension of my work that focuses on the people that are living really on the margins of society in Taiwan. So it deals with a caregiver who's from Thailand, an undocumented migrant worker who has to he's tested at every angle because of his work, his relationship with his employer and his fellow migrant workers. And a lot is asked of him from his patients as well. So it's a film that charts his moral dilemmas across, this period of time, a very wintry, cold, wet, damp season where winter hasn't, ended, but spring hasn't arrived yet. Something like that.
And as you're mentioning, I know you've explored kind of this milieu before in your short films, and kind of South Asian workers who are in these very sort of unstable situations, and that's something you've expanded for your feature. What first sparked your interest in this kind of subject matter, and why do you think it's important to explore it on screen?
When I first arrived in Taiwan, I'm from Singapore. When I first arrived in Taiwan, I came here because I really wanted to find out more about Taiwanese cinema, in particularly the new wave, director Ho Xiaoxian, Chiang Wei Liang. But there wasn't actually a way for me to stay in the because there wasn't I wasn't doing school there. It was just me, with my luggage, a little bit of my savings, and trying to find my way. So I had to do visa runs for the first 3 years of my time there. Singapore has only a 30-day visa-free stay that you can do. So every month I was doing flights out to whichever is cheaper to go to, and then come back in on the next flight. I was running to the immigration agencies to try to find a way to stay. And then over there, I met a lot of young people like myself. And I was 20 then. They are mostly from Southeast Asia. They're seeking redress or things like that, and seeking ways to solve their problems at these relevant authorities. And then, when we were smoking in the corner, and you kind of realize that the experience that I had of Taiwan is vastly different from them. Even though we hail from the same region, from Southeast Asia, but Singapore is one of the worst, most prosperous nations around. I'm ethnic Chinese. I spoke Mandarin, however bad it was back then. The treatment that I had from people in Taiwan is very different from what my counterparts from Southeast Asia faced. And so, some of them begin to meet regularly, and then you kind of realize that, there's some really serious things going on, and you can't help but feel angry about certain things that they had to go through. And so when I was, I was young and naive then. I had a phone that had a camera on it. This was back in 2010. I started out just making videos for them so they can use it to lodge complaints, with their agencies or the authorities, And then on, now that I'm aware of their situation, the phenomena that they're going through, a lot of, exploitation is involved. And, their rights are not institutionalized. Finally, when I got a chance to be doing a MFA program in Taiwan, I thought, hey, okay, this is there must be something more than just satisfying myself creatively making films. Why not try to do something else? And one of your great filmmakers from the UK that I had the privilege to meet, Mr. Ken Loach. What he said to me very, very early on, and I asked him, I was in Locarno a long time ago, and we had a master class with him. And I posed a question to him, and it said like, I said like, how do you exercise? How do I exercise my social responsibility as a filmmaker, right? And he just gave me three words, which I know that you probably know by heart from all the interviews that you might have done with him a long time ago. Agitate, educate, organize, right? That's the labor movement that he's and thought, I thought like, okay, maybe I could try to answer the question whether cinema can be actually virtuous or not. So that's how I began doing this, and doing this for a long time now.
Ken Loach being sort of a very solid reference. There's such realism. It almost feels like a documentary to a certain extent. And I guess your cast were very crucial to making that work. So maybe you can talk about the people that you have in your film, but particularly who you have, Wan Lot playing and how you worked with him to develop that character and come across sort of very naturalistic on screen.
First of all, before I even began writing the script, I knew that the actor or the character had to be Thai. It's a small nod to the labor history of Taiwan, where the first country Taiwan imported the workers from when they needed to open up their labor market in the late 80s and early 90s for their infrastructure projects was from Thailand. And so the character for me always was Thai, was always going to be Thai. And I met Wan Lop I was first introduced to him through his works. He has been in quite a bit of films that were made by Thai filmmakers, starting from Eternity in 2010 all the way up to Manta Ray in 2018. And there was this sensitivity, there's this screen presence that he had that could embody the ambiguity of this character, this morally ambiguous scenario that he finds himself in. So there's this gentleness to him, but he's being asked to do many things that tests him in at every angle. And when I finally met him in person a few years back, to invite him to join us on this film, and you realize that personally he had a lot of experiences. I think this is because the topics that are being addressed in the film, in the script, it's highly relatable. Everybody gets sick. Everybody has taken care of someone or have been taken care by someone before. I think how relatable these scenarios are. It's something that a person with such empathy like he does could relate to it, could take to it immediately. Of course, what needed work was for him to find out what the situation was like in Taiwan for migrant workers. How is it like to be somebody that's undocumented, who is at the mercy of forces that beyond their control? This is something that he needed to find out more about. But of course, in Thailand, a similar influx of migrant workers from Myanmar, from Laos, it's already present. So it's not like he is unaware. And so with the empathy that he has and the complete buy-in he has with the material, and hearing how I came out with this script, my own personal experiences, I think it was very easy to work with for the material to get a hang on. But working on the film itself, that was a tough part, because the scenes that he finds himself playing in, the other characters, those are tough situations. So I think making the film is difficult, but getting him to understand the world, it's relatively easier. And with the rest of the cast, I think it's the same. Empathy, a lot of empathy that they had for the situations. Yu Hong, that plays the boss in the film, he used to be a member of a triad. He had a similar situation, in his family with Shui. Needs no introduction. He fights with his situation every day. And Lu Yiqing, a veteran actress in a lot of films by Tsai Ming-liang. Well, she knows what is it like, and personally, she's been sick before as well. Very critical illness that she finally recovered from. So everybody could relate to this material in some way or another, and I think this is where a lot of the heart of the film comes from. this highly relatable situations that we find in life.
And maybe you could say a few words about the look and feel of the film. Sort of like taking this sort of quite small, like the ratios, like taking us really inside, this sort of shared dormitories and these spaces, and how that sort of feeling of claustrophobia in a way is then reflecting how trapped these people are in these situations without a sort of easy way out, really.
Well, I think in terms of the mise en scène, the 4:3 aspect ratio is something that I work with a lot since I started out. The first is really because it was purely economical, because I had to dress less of the set. I didn't have any funds to make my short films in the past. I had to, for my filmography, as you could see, chronologically, I would work 1 year, save up, and then make my short film the following year. So a lot of it was purely economical. But at the same time, I realized that it really the intimacy, the compactness of the frame provides a intimacy and focus on the characters and the circumstances they find themselves in. You had not much screen estate to look at. You have to be intently focused on the characters. So as I go along, this kind of stuck. And when I finally discovered the cinema of, for example, Pedro Costa, of Wang Bing, even from the UK, Andreano, right? So this thing, I mean, I could see how it has links to a very very down to earth kind of depiction of people in these situations. It's uncompromising in that sense. So with this in mind, the lighting, the composition, I think it has to kind of be respectful to the austerity. It has to be austere to the situations of the character. It can't be fancy. It can't be a lot of embellishments that we put on the film. It has to be on the characters and the situations, I think. So maybe that contributes to what you call the claustrophobic feeling. I think this is because the characters, they can't find a way out, or the set of choices that they can make are very very finite. So I hope that the audience could feel that there isn't much warmth in these places, because when you are in that situation, for example, when you deal with a physical disability, for example, it's very hard for you to change a light bulb in your house. You're not going to be switching on every single light in your. You're going to just use whatever illumination that you need just to get by, to read a book, to look for your pills, and just go to the bathroom. You're just going to do that. So there isn't much sense for a lot of light to come in, and warm or light, figuratively speaking or literally speaking, it has to come from the characters, the relations that they feel for each other. As such, the whole look of the film is going to be darker in some sense. It's going to be gloomy, greedy, and I hope that it kind of brings you into the inner world or the psyche of these characters. So everything is just stripped down to essence of the situations in the mountains. Yeah.
And in terms of the takeaways from watching the film, I mean, I guess kind of broadly, like shining a light on the reality that is the case for a lot of migrant workers is super important. But there's, a certain amount of nuance in the way it's portrayed, because, this protagonist, like we were mentioning, is sort of put constantly in these morally ambiguous situations. So it's not just highlighting how, systemic failures are allowing people to take advantage of vulnerable people, but it's also sort of questioning the audience of perhaps what would you do in their shoes? Because it's not always as black and white as, we would all be able to rise above all that.
Actually, when you read the news or when you watch TV or you're on social media, such situations, I think the audience or anyone would have a contextual knowledge, a prior contextual knowledge of these things. They are not new. Nothing is new under the sun. So I would say that when the audience come in, there isn't a need or point for me to assert myself anymore. I'm really there when when I decide to undertake a particular project. When a filmmaker undertakes a particular project, you know their stance on their material. But to raise questions, I think it's more important than asserting a statement, because how you feel about a particular topic, whether it's societal or political, I'm not really here to change minds. I don't think that I have the audacity. I mean, to do so. It's too hard. But what we can do is to spark conversation or dialogue. A film doesn't really change things. To be honest, it doesn't move a needle. Legislation does, and if the right people see it, people in governance or people that have the power or the influence to make something happen, to move the needle, if they feel prompted to, compelled to, that'd be great. But if not, I think at the very least, people who have such situations that they face such situations in their life, caregiving, or if they are a migrant worker, at least probably they feel comforted. Hopefully, they feel comforted that someone out there, on the other side of the world, they feel it so strong enough that they committed considerable resources and time, most importantly time, to make this film. I think if it comforts the disturbed and disturbs the comfortable, I think that is enough for me. So that would be the biggest takeaway that I hope myself, my crew, would like to give to anyone who chooses to engage with this film.
And finally, being here in Cannes, I know you had the premiere last night. What does it mean for you to be here and I guess have this platform for your film to reach such a diverse audience?
Well, being Cannes, I mean, this is not my first time here now, but with a film here being more directly involved, I think it's pretty exhausting. You see the whole machinery at work. Yeah, having the film here, I think it's the best possible way to for it to reach people. I mean, it's still a business after all. It's still a market. You want people to be curious enough to say, hey, let's take this film back to our country. Let's show it. There could be some avenues where we could present it, and there could be considerable dialogue that could take place. I think this is what Cannes to me means. It has the biggest market, for sure. On a personal level, I would say, first of all, to show the film to people from all walks of life here, and then to have some of them come up to me and say, hey, I know what you're doing. Thank you for showing this thing. What went through is so real to me. I mean, I have members of public coming up to me to say that. I think that I feel very moved by. The biggest thing would be to take our actor Xu Wei here. I mean, Xu Wei hasn't flown before, not so far, not ever, and to see him on stage, to have him know that his work here is being recognized. But that's such a wonderful thing. For him and his mom who's here as well. And then I would say, I think making this film hasn't been really easy. It hasn't been it hasn't been the most easiest of things to do in my life so far. But it really challenges my really challenges my idea of this question that whether cinema could really be virtuous. Now I'm thankful to be here, but at the same time my thoughts are with the people who can't be here, who we lost along the way. And maybe in the press kit, you probably would have read that during the shoot, one of the scenes, I had a real medical emergency that happened or on the film, where I was shooting a particular scene where the character Room is trapped inside. EMTs can't go in, the paramedics can't come in. And when I was shooting that scene, one take or two take in, my producer stopped me and said, hey, we need the EMTs, because we hire real EMTs to come play EMTs on the set. And they said, we need the EMTs immediately. And not far from my location in the house, just a stone throw away, a man had a cardiac arrest. We went there to, our EMTs really tried, we had equipment, our EMTs went over. We couldn't save him. And this was deep in the mountains. The ambulance only came 45 minutes later. And then 2 hours before we wrapped for the day, the ambulance came back with a deceased body, of course. when we started packing up for the day, a funeral, a wake was going on, you know. So I don't know. Sometimes I think some considerable finances or resources are given, by the government, by the agencies. I quote them, in their citation, to highlight, an important issue. Shouldn't these funds be committed to ensuring that in these medical deserts and every rural township have a medical rescue team or emergency response team on standby, but it's given to a film. So hopefully this I mean, I'm not sure just members of the public, but filmmakers, as filmmakers or agencies, we could think about what really we could do with these films. You manage to finance a film that get into Cannes, but how does this film reach the audiences, people who need to see it, people who should see it, and what do we do with that? So there's a question of film literacy involved as well, not just film financing or co-production or getting your film here in Cannes. I'm happy that they are happy. But I think there's more that needs to be done to ensure there's a better dialogue in terms of how, you guys have the BFI, the lottery system. Yeah, how do we do that? I think that's the question.
And just very quickly, do you know what you're going to work on next in terms of your next film, or are you going to think
No,
about it for a bit
I
longer?
think I would. There are ideas for sure, but I think I will rest and recover first. I think it takes a lot of our view to, when you do a socially driven thing, it kind of stays with you. All these stories, people, when you do field work, it stays with you and they don't go away. How do we move on from that? I think that's the question. This is my first time, right? I will have to see. But there are lots and lots of stories to tell. So much to do, and with the world that we have right now, the times that we're living in right now, so much. So hopefully I get the energy up again and do something. So thank you for your time, Sarah. And,
Amazing.
the
Thank you so
upcoming-
much. Thanks
yeah.
for sharing all that with me. Wow, how
Appreciate it.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Really enjoy the rest of the time here in Cannes.
Thank you.
you.